All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Keith Clitheroe. I'm the founder and CEO of Gig Connected. We are streamlining construction staffing. Why are we doing this? Well, 95% of construction employers in the U.S. say they have a hard time finding labor. And it's a very sizable market. The industry is multi-trillion dollars per year in the U.S. $1.3 trillion of buildings are made every year here. But if you're wanting to find labor right now, you kind of go to a couple of places. One, you might go to a traditional staffing agency. You may go to a Home Depot parking lot. You may go to Craigslist, which actually does $400 million a year in revenue just on job postings. A significant portion is in construction. But all these have problems like long hiring times. It's difficult logistics. I think the most important thing potentially is lack of transparency into worker skill sets, or the employers giving workers rights, fair wages, etc., or it's too expensive. So what do? We created a platform. It's a mobile-friendly web application. We expanded the search for workers and employers beyond the street corner they're standing on. They can also search by job type, skills, etc. We put more details in the job, so I know where is the job, can I get there with my transportation, can I make money, how much is it? And then we have ratings and reviews. That's two ways for both workers to carry a resume with them to other jobs, and employers. We're just essentially creating a pseudo B Corp rating system for them. So we're pursuing three revenue models. The top one is kind of your traditional staffing agency with a service fee on top of worker wage. At 15%, we're well below market. In the construction industry, it's anywhere between 25% and 200% of worker wage. The second, most job posting sites within construction, it costs money per job posting. So we'll offer tiered services for a number of job postings per month and add ancillary services on top of that. And then the third one came up this summer as we were exploring. So there's other providers out there like landscaping companies that buy from greeneries. They have a supply in their truck that needs to get in the ground today or tomorrow, or it's dead. And so they need access to workers. So we'll plug into those other companies as well. To give you an idea of the revenue scale, capturing 3%, this is the 3% may be a little bit aggressive, but the numbers here are actually very conservative in terms of the revenue at $200 million a year. So this summer we had great growth. We have less than $1 customer acquisition cost for workers. We had exponential growth over the summer, but we're actually teed up very nicely to expand that growth as we continue to go. And the way we do this is with company partnerships. So all the not-for-profits that you see here, we've had extensive conversations with, and we're working with a lot of them. They have intimate knowledge and relationships with individual workers. They also provide certifications and training. So we have workers coming into the community that can make more money and experience economic mobility. The most important thing I'll say on the right side with the construction companies, we're in preliminary discussions with a national company in their innovation group. They had a Shark Tank idea exactly like mine. They ended up not pursuing it, but right now, because I have a product, we're in talks to build the platform further. And so we're gearing up to do a bi-coastal pilot with them that would be 6+ months and give us instant national scale. So I think the last slide is actually more our team slide than this slide because the organizations play a critical role, but we've had a great mentorship from organizations, accelerators, but also a whole list of individuals that I can't fit on one slide. We're also the first startup in Charlotte's history to be sponsored by the city of Charlotte with a grant. We got that in 2018 with Annie E. Casey Foundation, and then we got another grant this year with NC Idea Fund. Chai is our head of software development. He has 15 years of software development, master's level education. I bring over 10 years of accounting, digital strategy and innovation at enterprise scale, and also significant experience in performance improvement, cost reduction strategies. So right now we're kind of gearing up to a pre-seed capital raise. We're still finalizing the terms and the amounts on that, but we'll do that in conjunction with this application enhancement with that national construction company that I mentioned, and we'll go right into a bi-coastal pilot and do a controlled national rollout. And I like to leave this slide up here in Charlotte because part of the reason why I'm doing this is economic mobility. If you read the report, which if you haven't, you need to go read it, they talk about affordable housing, which we don't have a whole lot in right now, but they also talk about education. We partner with a lot of education providers to get people jobs at more skilled levels and higher wages. And then the biggest thing is social capital, and that's what we're creating here with a network. So, questions?
There we go.
4 minutes and 58 seconds. That's what I like. Nice.
I'm gonna
well
count.
prepared, very well prepared. The thing I would suggest that you put in here, if for nothing else in practice of it, is put in the funding and what you'll do with it. I think that helps, again, for you to prepare yourself for making that ask, because it is different than talking about your business. It's one thing to say, here's what we're doing, another thing to say, here's what we're raising. So even in an audience like this, you can put up a fake slide or a slide that says, yeah, we're raising $500,000, here's what we're doing with it. Get used to doing that, because I think it's good practice for you. So that's really my only comment on the slide deck. I think it nailed the discussion about the problem, about the market, about how you generate revenue from this, and being an accountant as well, I like that you put in there the cost of acquisition. It's overlooked quite a bit by entrepreneurs, as well as even talking about the revenue stream. And you have a very detailed slide on that. So really, really good content. You can see that you've been preparing for this. And maybe for the benefit of other entrepreneurs in the room, can you tell us what you did to prepare for this? And your 5 minutes, timing, content, what were some tidbits that you'd have to share with others?
Well, one, I've been working on this idea for 4 years, so at this point I've pitched I don't know how many times. The other thing is I have a background in consulting, so I've made slide decks for a living. And then I work full-time right now at Wells Fargo in digital strategy and innovation. And so I critique startups. I'm heavily involved in the Queen City fintech community, et cetera. So I've seen a lot of pitches as well. So I think Juan, you said there's 250 videos online. Go watch 20 of them and see which ones you like and go from there.
There you go. I think that's all great advice, and I do think that is part of the community element that all this is about, is to make all this about a learning exercise for all of you. So I think you did a really good job in that regard. So kudos.
Great job.
Thank you.
Couple questions. I Tech Town South, we do staff aug, so in some ways a similar model. I wonder, I get the whole partnership with Charlotte Works, Goodwill, et cetera. I assume they're the ones that are running background checks, ensuring skill level, et cetera. If folks come into your pipeline from outside of those partnerships, how do you quality control those people? And then on the other end, who is handling sort of the operational 1099? Is that you, or is that the hiring partner? How does that process work?
Yeah, so in terms of skill validation, we're working on, part of what we'll build out is actually a whole suite of services for our community organizations. So they have case managers that help with job placements. They can certify that, yes, Keith actually went through our training program, et cetera. So it's almost like if you're on Twitter, you see a verified check mark. We can do stuff like that around skill sets. Right now we don't do background checks, but there are softwares that exist that we can easily plug in and add that as one of those tiered services. Part of what we're trying to do though in construction is breaking down barriers to employment. And generally speaking, if you talk in construction, there's generally one or a combination of three things: mental health, a criminal background history, or drug, alcohol dependencies. And it's almost an expectation that there is some sort of background there. But we don't want to like eliminate people from jobs. Now there are times, state and federally funded projects or schools and those sorts of things where background checks are required, so that's why we'll have that in there. Is that all your question?
Yeah, I think so. And then on the other side, who handles sort of the operational? Are they 1099 through you?
Yeah.
Or?
And so that's part of the reason why we want to work with a construction company too, is to understand all those connection points. Mm-hmm. How does it plug into your accounting software? How do we do the 1099 issuance and make sure that it's right for those, the employee, the companies, and the workers? So we'll help with that.
Okay, I have one other question.
Yeah.
When you're displaying folks that are available to a Myers Chapman or whoever, how are you determining who you display first? Is it based on ratings? Is it based on proximity to location of where they need to work?
Yeah, we have a combination of things. So we'll have search options that the employer can actually change that. But the default right now is based on ratings and reviews. the challenge as we're growing is that not everyone has done a job on the platform, so we don't want to discriminate. So we try to also match by skill sets and proximity to skill sets. So there's a self-attestation from the workers as well to say, when I come out on the platform, I've done this for 10 years. I should be considered alongside someone that's done a few jobs.
So they are sort of self-identifying their skill level at the beginning, and then if they
Yeah, in combo with
hold one over on you, then you'll
organizations.
know after the first job.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We're essentially creating LinkedIn for the trades,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of people in here have thousands of people on their LinkedIn networks, but a lot of these people go from job to job, and they need a way to transfer that background to other employers.
Thanks, Keith. I really appreciated that, and I really liked your style. Your style wasn't, wasn't as upbeat, right? Wasn't as pitchy. Wasn't as kind of salesy. It came off as very authentic, right? And you came across as somebody who obviously knew the market, knew the industry, knew the numbers. I think you, and I hope you were able to kind of sense the audience when you mentioned, Craigslist, that there's $400 million being spent on Craigslist and just sign the audience, right?
30-person organization.
Right, so those things, are things that kind of bring this to life. I think as the presentation kind of went on, one thing that stood out for me is that, kind of once I started to learn, I love the market too. I love the fact that it's niche kind of in construction, a place that I think is kind of the furthest from, kind of technology, right? Which was really interesting for me. And so, but then, when you make the comment, I've been kind of working on the idea, right? The idea rather than the business for 4 years. It comes across a little bit as, okay, is this Keith's hobby, right? Keith's, maybe have worked construction in the past. I'd probably like to have heard more about your connection to construction, right? Your family has been in construction for a long time. These are the challenges you faced. And so, kind of working at Wells Fargo. At what point for you, though, does this, I guess two questions. At what point do you see this kind of going from kind of hobby to real business, right? And, what do you do with your full-time job? And I guess the second question is, what's different now than 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Has the model shifted? Because certainly the world's changed a lot, technology's changed. But really, what's changed about the business? Why now? Why is it going to work this time?
Yeah, so I think a few things. One, my sister and brother-in-law run a construction company. My brother-in-law's been in construction since he was running full crews at 15. And so that's kind of where this came from. In terms of commitment, I think we've taken a slow approach, and I think that too often people jump and just put $15 billion into WeWork and it fails, right? We've taken a very slow, methodic approach. People are coming back from these organizations because I've hung around a little bit, right? I've learned the industry. I don't know it from experience in terms of building houses, other than unless you count Habitat, which I've done a few of those, but I don't think that counts really. So I've learned the business. I'm starting to learn what employers need, what organizations need, what individuals need, what are the solutions out there, like background checks. How do we get more cash into the workers' hands with digital payments, get away from check counting centers and those sorts of things. What's changed in a year is we've had time now to talk, and I have thousands of conversations now that we're compiling that we're ready for this next phase out with all the right functions and features. And yeah, I think once we get there and we're in pilot mode, then we can talk full time. I've talked to a lot of angel investors, VCs, et cetera, and they all agree with this approach. Like, take it a little bit slow, and then when the time is right to go full time. So.
Thank you. One thing that stood out to me additionally was, revolution is scary, right? Revolution is scary, but evolution is comforting. And you presented 3 kind of models up there, which felt like a little bit of a safety net if this were a company I were to invest in. But you kind of thought through 3 pathways. You've got really good sense of the numbers, but the fact that it felt a little bit safer because of that slow conservative approach. That's how I grew my business, by the way. Very slow, non-traditional, right? And you're right, and it's an anomaly today. So I certainly a lot of respect for that. I thought your pitch was really clean and really credible. A lot of credibility. That's the way I would kind of describe this, which is extremely important.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Good. Is there more time for the audience?
Yeah, we have time for one question. Go ahead.
How much you say Craigslist was making off this year?
Craigslist does in revenue about $700 million a year in total, and about $400 million a year comes from job postings. So Craigslist isn't free. It's anywhere between $3 and $75 a job post, which is kind of in line with Indeed and other places.
Right, so how do you take market share away from that?
So I actually have tested a lot with advertising on Craigslist, which a lot of these small mom and pop, or smaller, even bigger companies advertise there as well. And so what we're trying to do is get away from that. Like, I'm an anonymous person on Craigslist. I have to screen those same people. Let's create like the profile, so now screening is easier. Yeah.
All right, Keith with
Thanks.
Gig Connected.